Hey everyone, and welcome to the People Analytics channel. If this is your first time here, this is a free resource for HR professionals and students looking to improve their data science skills. Now today we're going to be covering a very fun metric, and that's return on talent ratio. And we actually borrow a formula from finance that looks at the risk-adjusted return of stocks, and then we apply it to People Analytics. So please hit subscribe, and let's start learning. Okay, continuing on our journey of the top 10 metrics you can use to establish a team from scratch. Now, the one clarification I want to make is typically your HR metrics should be a cascade of the overall corporate strategy. However, it's important to have a baseline set of metrics that exists no matter who the CEO is. So you start with these 10, and then as the corporate strategy is set by the executive team, you calibrate and potentially add additional metrics to align with that strategy. But these 10 work regardless of the CEO. So today we're going to focus on a really fun and interesting metric, and that's called return on talent ratio. And this really tells you the value your employees are bringing to the business compared to replaceable talent in the market. And as I say with every video, it's really important to keep your analytics simple and easy to understand. The whole purpose of People Analytics is to help make executive conversations better. So let's really try to focus on what Einstein said. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Now, successful metrics requires that they be embedded as part of a broader improvement method. Now, there's many available, whether it's Six Sigma, Agile, Project Management, and so forth. I like Professor Brick's improvement method, and basically these 6 principles is a continuous feedback loop to drive process improvement in the business. The measurement for improvement step is where return on talent fits, and basically this metric calculates the return at each stage of the employee's career, whether they're a new hire, tenured, or near retirement. And it compares performance against available replacements. So what's great about this metric is it's not simply a quality of hire, but it's also how is the value of this employee changing as they progress in their career in the company. Now this metric is a lot of fun, but I have to give a shout out to the inspiration for how it was designed. So William F. Sharpe, he was a Nobel Prize recipient. He created the Sharpe Ratio, which is a widely used metric within finance to track the risk-adjusted performance return of an asset. Now, you may not think of people as stocks, but from a people analytics perspective, the methodology to track return versus risk is the same. So we're going to take William F. Sharpe's ratio, and we're going to apply it to people analytics. Now, this metric is a little more advanced than the prior ones, but remember, we're going to keep it simple and focus on what Einstein said. Now, in terms of the key principle of return on talent, we need to remember that talent is rare, but average is abundant. So companies who lose a high potential cannot expect to replace that person with someone with the same skills and experience. Typically, you're going to replace individuals you lose with what's available in the market, and that is average performers. So talent return occurs when employee performance exceeds that expected of average performers available in the marketplace. That's how we're going to measure whether or not the employees you've hired are actually adding value above and beyond what the replacement could do. This metric looks at both risk and return. So from a return perspective, how do employees positively contribute to the business? And an acronym that you can learn is called PARKIT. Now, I'm a data scientist, not a marketer, so PARKIT's the best I can do. But basically it tells you this. What are the things that employees are adding value to the business? The first is project execution. The next is availability. Now you might wonder, why is someone being available to work matter? Well, if you ever worked with someone who doesn't show up and is not reliable, you understand that being available is actually a positive contribution. Risk management, knowledge sharing and mentoring, and then innovation in industry. Are they developing patents? Are they contributing in industry conferences and so forth? And then the last one is tenure. Once someone has been with the company for a while, they have relationships, it's easier for them to get things done. So PARKIT is how we measure positive employee contributions. Okay, key principle number 2. Remember, we're using the Sharpe Ratio, which looks at the risk versus return of an investment, and employees are definitely the most important investment in a business. So the key principle number 2 is this. Employees are like stocks, and CHROs are investors. Portfolio of talent returned is what matters. Now think of it this way, you might have one great employee, but 6 lousy employees. You can't just say, well, this one great employee makes up for the difference in all the other hires. You have to look at it in summation. So talent return occurs when The summation of all employee contributions exceeds that expected of average performers. And remember, average is what easy to backfill. So we use that as the baseline to determine if the summation of employees are adding value more so than what could replace them in the market. Okay, now remember we're looking at risk and return. So while you might have a very positive market contribution, you also have to look at the negative downside factors for employees that you've hired. So key principle number 3, talent return is offset by risk factors. Just like stocks, CHROs want to minimize volatility. So talent return occurs when employee risk factors are minimized. And those include things such as absenteeism, safety violations, mismatch with culture, and so forth. So how do we measure risk? And there's another acronym that you can learn, and it's called PAM is SAD. Now I think this one's a lot better than Parkit, but essentially what you want to do is make sure that PAM is never SAD in your business. And what PAM does is it tells you all of the negative downside factors that you want to minimize for the employees that you hire. And those include policy breaches, absenteeism, mismatch with company culture. Maybe the person has a bad attitude or just doesn't believe what the company believes. Safety violations. Added training. You know, the CV might look great, but once you hire the person, you realize they don't really have the skills you need, and you have to spend excess L&D costs to upskill them. And then the last is data leakage. And this is confidential information getting released into the market. So you want to make sure PAM is never SAD. Now, while the calculation may be a bit more intensive than other KPIs we've covered, the formula components themselves is pretty straightforward. All you need is the summation of employee performance using the Parkit method, and then you need the summation of employee risk factors tracking how sad PAM is in the business. And then what you do is you compare that to the baseline performance of average market replacements. Now remember, we replace talent most of the time with average performers. So number 3 is tracking the Parkit and the PAM is SAD based on what we think an average performer would do in our company. Now once again, let's give a shout out to Professor Sharpe. We're basically using his formula but adapting the finance mechanism to people analytics. And essentially the calculation is as follows. You use the average performance of your employees using the Parkit method as well as how PAM is SAD, and then you subtract that from the expected performance of replacements. And then once you have that number, you divide it by the standard deviation of performance of your employees. The goal is to maximize your return while minimizing the standard deviation of your workforce. Okay, let's do an example. Now, before you freak out, way too many numbers, oh my God, just remember, keep it simple and focus on the acronyms. Now, on the left-hand side, you see Parkit and PAM is SAD in bold, and the scores next to them represent a scale from 0 to 10. So for your employees, you can see how the scores line up for Parkit and PAM is SAD, and what you do is you add those up, you divide by 6, which is the number of categories, and you get a score. So for your employees, it's 6.3 minus 3.1, which equals 3.2. You do the exact same thing for the average replacements in the market, and you can see from this graph, it's 1.5. So once you have those two numbers, you subtract 3.2 minus 1.5, and that gives you 1.7. And then you divide it by the standard deviation of your employees, and that gives you a Sharpe ratio of 2.8. Now, what exactly does all that mean? We're going to cover that next. Okay, so you have a score of 2.8, and you want to understand what that means. Now remember, the return on talent ratio is an excellent indicator of risk-adjusted employee contributions. So you take the positive contributions from the Parkit methodology, you subtract how PAM is SAD in the business, and then you divide that by the standard deviation of your employee return. Now, once you have that information, you can basically use this table to determine how you're doing. Now, a score of 0 to 1, and you really have some problems with your talent pool. A score of 1 to 2 means that your talent is pretty average, comparable to the market. And once you get to the 2 or above 3, you're really making some progress. It indicates that your talent pool is contributing more value than what you could replace it with in the market. And that means you need to treat those employees well, because it would be very difficult to replace them with comparable talent. Okay, that's it for Return on Talent. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, click subscribe. I'll be loading new content as much as possible. Have a great day.